Hi there, I'm Lizzy and this is my monthly knitting podcast. A big warm welcome to everyone to episode 17 of the Norwenglish Knitter podcast. This is my little space on the internet where I get to show and talk about all of my recent projects. 99% of the time these will be knitting projects. However, I am a lover of all things craft and I have dabbled a little bit into embroidery and crochet as well. However, knitting is my preferred craft at this time. As usual, I will have everything mentioned in this video written in the description box down below, as well as a link to my projects page on Ravelry. Other places you can find me are on Instagram as the Norwenglish Knitter and on Ravelry as LizzyHut94. The format of my podcast might change slightly from month to month. However, I usually start with some chatter and life updates in the beginning before moving on to my knitting. And I'll be dividing the video into different sections so you can skip ahead or back to any part of the video that you want to. Depending on what device you're using, you can simply tap on or hover over the screen of the video playback area in order to choose whichever chapter you like. And these chapters will have names as well. In today's video, I'll be starting off with my chatter, moving on to my knitting, and then I'm going to be starting a new segment that I am calling Procrasti-knitting, which is where I talk about any patterns or yarns or anything that has caught my eye. In other words, me procrastinating and not working on the projects that I currently have on my needles, but rather looking for new projects that I could be doing. So I hope you enjoy. Maybe grab a nice drink and some knitting or whatever craft you enjoy doing, and let's get into it. I don't really have too much to share about what's been going on around here. Pretty much more of the same, to be honest. I am pre-recording today's episode because my husband is having another week of university online instead of at the university, and so we thought we would take that opportunity to travel over to our farmhouse in the east of Norway. We live on the west coast, near to Bergen. So we're going to enjoy a week over there, and I wasn't sure if I would get the chance to record while I was there, so I am recording this today and you'll be seeing it sometime next week. In other news, because we've bought this farmhouse, we've been looking for some different equipment and machinery that we might need when we move there. And so my husband found a tractor that was for sale, and yeah, we bought a tractor. Never thought I would be saying that, but it will come in very useful. It's got some different attachments that can go with it, and the main thing that we're excited about at the moment is that it's got a snowplow attachment, a snow blower attachment actually, I think, which is going to be very useful. Our new house is in the countryside, and they do get quite a bit of snow there, so it's important for us to be able to clear our road. Our house is not directly on a main road, and it has its own little road leading to the house, which doesn't get cleared. So that will be very useful in the winter. I think that's everything, to be honest. It's only been 3 weeks, and like I said, there's not really much that's changed around here. We have had a little bit of a lockdown, you could say, in that a lot of shops and restaurants and things have been closed for a few weeks. But I think things are starting to look like they might be opening back up again, so that's good. Of course, I think everyone at this point is just feeling so sick and tired of hearing about Corona, so I'm not going to mention it anymore, and let's get into the knitting because that is the fun part. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you about a cowl that I'm running. This is my first ever cowl, and it's called the Summer Vibes cowl. The intention behind this cowl, or knit along, is that I would like to have some more summer garments and things for my wardrobe for this coming spring and summer. And so I wanted to start early. Usually I start knitting for the season that we're currently in, so that by the time I'm finished with things, I don't get much of a chance to wear them until that season comes around again. So I'm starting early, and I hope that you will join me. So this cowl started 4 weeks ago when I posted my last episode, and it will be running until September the 22nd, which is the last day of summer here in the Northern Hemisphere. You can take part wherever you are in the world. All that's required for you to take part is to make a summery garment, something that you believe that you will get some use out of in the spring, summer months, whatever you like. If you want the full details and rules, you can head over to my ravelry group, the Norwenglish Knitter podcast, where I have a chatter thread, and after today's episode I will also be opening up a finished object thread as well. You can also use the hashtag SummerVibesCal on Instagram. I'll be pulling prizes from all 3 places, so the finished object thread, the chatter thread, and also on Instagram. So lots of prizes to be won. I hope as many of you will take part as possible. Whips are allowed. As many items as you want to enter you can, and double dipping in other cowls is allowed. So it's a very flexible and free knit along, and I really look forward to seeing what some of you make and hopefully give me some inspiration as well, because I'm always looking for new patterns and new things to make. So let's get on to my finished objects. The first one I have to show you is something that has been on my needles since September last year, and it was a request from my husband, and it's the Islender genser, which here in Norway is a very common and quite popular pattern. So I'll just see if I can hold it up. It's quite large, but it has this same colourwork pattern throughout. Now typically this jumper would be made with a kind of thicker yarn. I would say probably something like Aran, maybe even bulky, I'm not sure. But I decided to knit this in a fingering weight / sport weight yarn. I know, looking back, probably not the best decision. I probably should have picked something more like worsted or Aran, because this has taken me a very long time. However, I am really pleased with the result, and I'm really quite pleased with the thickness of the fabric. I see my husband getting a lot of wear out of this, especially in kind of the spring and autumn months, where there's that kind of transition between really cold weather and the warmer weather starting up again. Traditionally, this jumper usually has a kind of white background with a very dark grey, almost black contrast colour. My husband actually came with me to my local yarn shop in Bergen, and we decided it would be nice to make one that was a little bit different. Seeing as I was knitting it, hand knitting it, we thought it would be nice to have something that wasn't like the ones that you can just buy in the shop or online. So we chose a light grey and a dark grey, and I'm using the Drops Baby Merino, I believe it's called, and I've got the colours 20 and 22. And I can't remember exactly how many skeins of each that I used. I will have it written on the screen along with the cost. All I know is that I really, really love this yarn. I'm a huge fan of the Drops brand in general. They have a lot of great choices of different yarn types and blends and different colours, and they are really affordable compared to a lot of other yarn companies. And it's really soft and squishy. It is a 100% superwash merino, and I was a little bit nervous about how this was going to work with a colourwork sweater, or just colourwork in general, because in the past when I've used kind of like yarn designed for baby knits, I have found that it's quite difficult to do the colourwork with because it's been so slippery, but this one has worked really well. This is just a really enjoyable knit as well. Although it's taken me quite a few months to get it done, I haven't been working on it, you know, monogamously all the time. But I've really enjoyed the process of making it. It was very relaxing and therapeutic. It's a 4-row repeat. 2 of those rows don't have any colour work at all. And the other 2 rows, the colour work is really simple and repetitive. It's a 6-stitch repeat, I think. No floats that you need to worry about catching. So it's just, yeah, a really nice knit. I am quite happy to have it finished because it's been a long time, but there is a part of me that's a little bit sad to not be working on this anymore. That's how much I've enjoyed making it. Now, I didn't follow a pattern for this, but I did use, there's Viking of Norway free pattern that you can follow, and that has the chart included, which is the chart that I used. And I would go through how I tackled this because it was quite a long process with some different steps along the way. And it's my first time ever knitting something without a pattern, like something of this size. So in order to give me some guidance, I asked my husband to find a pullover or a sweater in his wardrobe that he really liked the fit of and would happy for this jumper to be similar to. So he found this jumper here. It's just a really basic raglan type thin jumper, and I took various different measurements. So I measured the width along the bottom, and then kind of every 10 centimetre increments up to where the armholes would be. And then I also measured the distance between the armholes and the top of the jumper, so that I would know the distance that my raglan decreases would be over. And I also measured the length of the sleeves from the underarm to the cuff, and the width of the top of the sleeve as well. And I think probably some other parts of the sleeves. I took a lot of measurements. And I also did a swatch, which I knew would be really important. And from my swatch I worked out that I had 30 stitches per 10 centimetres, and I was using a 3.5mm needle. And I really liked the fabric that I got with that. And I did wet block that swatch as well, just, you know, trying to make sure that I got this right, because I knew that it would be a lot of hours going into this knitting. So I decided to knit this from the bottom up. That is, you know, traditionally here in Norway, people have always knit from the bottom up when it comes to colour work, because the way that the stitches are when you knit bottom up is different than when you knit top down when it comes to colour work. If you're knitting just plain stockinette or, you know, cables and things like that, it's not as obvious. But when you're knitting colour work, the direction of the stitches changes. So when you're knitting from the bottom up, you get this this V shape of each stitch that is pointing, so the arrow of the stitch is pointing down. If you knit from the top down, then the arrow of your stitch will be facing up. And that's something I learned from watching Anna and Carlos, who have a YouTube channel all about knitting. So I knit, let's see, I knit some stripes in the ribbing because that's quite typical of this jumper. And then I just work my way up, so I knit the body bottom up to the armholes, knit the sleeves up to the armholes, and then put everything together. I then had to figure out how to do the raglan decreases. And I probably made things a little bit too complicated for myself. That's just typical of me. I found this really great video for how to work out your raglan decreases, so I'll put that linked down below. and it would have worked really well, except I completely messed up my decreases. And I didn't notice until I had done probably a couple of inches or so, and I just couldn't be bothered to go back and redo it, so I just figured it out from there. But yeah, this jumper is definitely not perfect. I was trying to do, so with a raglan jumper you have 4 points around the jumper that you're doing decreases either side of those points, and you want them to be facing inwards. So you have, for example, a knit two together and an SSK. I don't personally like the way that SSKs look. I don't find them a good kind of opposite match to a knit two together. So I was trying to find something else that I could use, and I found, I can't remember what the name of it was, I'll put it on the screen, which I thought would be perfect, and it was when I was doing it correctly. But I kind of messed it up at first without realising, and I wasn't actually decreasing. I was just twisting some stitches or something, I don't know. Anyway, I also decided to do a steek in the front. My husband really enjoys having jumpers that are a little bit more open around the neck, so that he doesn't get too hot. He's generally quite warm anyway. So I then cut that steek open, and I've done some ribbing all the way around. So I picked up stitches along here, along either side of the steek, and knit some ribbing going this way with some buttonholes. I think I've got about 3 or 4 buttonholes along here for some relatively large buttons. I then picked up stitches all the way around the top, and I knit a doubled over neckline, which is what he asked for when he tried it on. And in order to get a nice edge, once I'd knit half of the double length of knitting, I decided to make a nice edge by, so this is a knit 2 purl 2 rib, and I just did the opposite. So where there were knit stitches I purled them, and where there were purl stitches I knit them just for one round or one row, and then went back again, and that's just created this nice edge. It was really easy to find the fold over point along the whole thing, and I think it looks really nice. So the only thing that needs doing is adding some buttons. I'm still calling this a finished object because he could still wear it. It doesn't need buttons necessarily. He'll never have it done up all the way, if I know him well. He'll have, a couple of buttons at the bottom done up, but otherwise it'll be open. And the other thing is, that I need to mention, I added I don't even know what to call this. I just knit a long flat stockinette piece to cover up the steek, where I've cut the steek, all of the edges. So yeah, and I also added some short row shaping on the back at the top here. Yeah, that's it. There was quite a lot to say about this one, but it did take quite a while, and so I thought I should give it the limelight it deserves. I have actually worn this. It's really, really comfortable. I was just taking my dog for a quick walk, and it was by the front door, and I thought, I'll try it and see, and it was really lovely. I think I would really like to knit myself something similar, definitely with the same yarn. It's so soft. It's next to skin soft. It's squishy. It's just a really nice fabric, really nice thickness to it. It's really not that thick at all, but it's warm, but it's not super warm. Anyway, I'm probably rambling on, but I really love it. So definitely going to make myself something out of that. I do have some leftovers. They're not here next to me. I think I definitely have one full skein of each colour left, and plus a little bit more, so 1 and a bit skeins of each one that I need to figure out what to do with. I was thinking maybe of making like a toddler's sweater in the same pattern, but I'm not sure if I would have enough yarn or who I would give it to. But that's just, you know, I'm always thinking what my next project's going to be. So that's my first finished object, and let's move on to the next one. Moving on to my second finished object, this is the garment that I am wearing today. This is the Minaret Crop by Christina Danaee, and I am in love with this top. I fell in love with this pattern as soon as I saw it. I'll put up a picture of her beautifully photographed pattern, and beautifully designed pattern, I might add. When I saw this, I honestly felt like it was designed specifically for me. That's how much I love it. It is a raglan top with quite a bit of positive ease, and it's using a fingering weight yarn, and it's really drapey. So I used Drops Baby Alpaca Silk, which is 70% alpaca and 30% silk, so it's got really nice drape to it. And it's a top-down seamless construction with raglan increases, and it's just really beautiful. It's got a 3x1 twisted rib where you are knitting through the back loop of the knit stitches and purling pearl stitches normally, which creates this really nice these really nice lines throughout the whole garment, and I find that to be super flattering because the lines going vertically down is very slimming. And it's also got just a little bit of extra detail towards the bottom with some cables and some really simple small wobbles. So I just think it's really elegant and would suit a lot of different people and a lot of different shapes and sizes. It is kind of like a boxy fit, so there's no waist shaping, and it's just really, really comfortable to wear. I knit this in about 2 weeks, and yeah, it was just a super quick and fun knit, and I just see myself getting a lot of wear out of this. I did make a couple of modifications. The main one being that I changed how the bobbles were made. In her pattern she uses knitted bobbles and I did some crochet bobbles. That's a personal preference, something I learned when I made the Stonecrop Cardi by Andrea Mallory. So she uses some crochet bobbles in that one, and I just really liked how they popped and, you know, stayed on the right side of the fabric as well. So I put my own little kind of spin on that, did it slightly differently so they would be a little bit smaller, and really happy with how that turned out. The other thing that I had to do slightly differently was, so this pattern is written using 3.75mm needles for the main body, and I think 3.25 for the ribbing. When it came to the sleeves, I needed to use 4mm because I was using double pointed needles and I don't have double pointed needles in 3.75, but I figured it would be better to go up to 4 rather than down to 3.5, so that would still keep a good amount of positive ease. So the only other thing to say about this is it's super warm. This yarn is a lot warmer than I thought it would be. I have knit something out of this before. I knit the Hitofude Cardigan, which is a lace cardigan, it's all over lace. So obviously that one is not quite as warm because it has a lot of airflow. And this one is definitely a lot warmer. However, I still think it will be perfect for spring and summer, here in Norway at least. And for those days where it's, you know, kind of warm but not super hot, and maybe there's a slight breeze outside. We do live by the sea, so there is usually at least a little bit of a breeze every day, if not a complete windstorm. So yeah, I'm really, really, really happy with this. I can't recommend it enough, and I'm actually so happy with this that I have cast on another one. This is the first time that I've ever made something and cast on another one straight away when I'd finished it. I had worn it a couple of times just to see if I really loved it the way I thought I would, if there was anything that I would change. And I have cast on another one. So this is my first work in progress that I will show. And I am knitting it out of a different yarn. So as I've said in previous episodes, I'm trying to work through some of my stash rather than buying more yarn. And this is something that I've had in my stash for probably around a year. And I bought this not really knowing what I was going to make with it, but it was on sale and I was ordering some other yarn from this website. And you get free shipping if you spend a certain amount. So I figured I would just order some other stuff as well. So this is the Pure Lino by Garn. And it's very interesting. It's 100% recycled, which is great. And it's made from 15% premium natural linen and 85% organic recycled linen/rayon. Now, I wasn't sure what rayon was, so I had to Google it, and I'm still not entirely sure what it is. It's not synthetic, it's not natural, it's somewhere in between the two. It's I believe it's using naturally sourced cellulose fibres, which come from things like wood and bark, I believe. And I don't know how they make it into yarn, but here it is. It feels very similar to kind of like your linen, cotton type yarns. It has, I don't know how many plies, I'd say probably at least 5, of very thin threads that are twisted together. And this is, I believe, a fingering weight. And it's my first time knitting with something like this, so I'm going to see how it goes. I'm not going to give my final opinion until I have actually finished and worn the garment, because you can't really tell how much you like something until that point. So here is how far I've gotten with my next one. So I have gotten most of the way through my raglan increases. I'm about to have finished my raglan increases. Then I just need to knit until the armholes before I separate for the sleeves. I am making some modifications to this one. Not because I don't love this one, I just wanted this one to be a little bit different, and I thought if I made some changes it would make it more fun to knit another version. So the first thing that is different about this one is the gauge. So with this first one I got gauge with 3.75mm needles, and I actually changed the gauge for this one. So when I was reading online about knitting with rayon and linen, it was recommended that I go down a needle size or 2 because it can be difficult on the hands knitting with it and things like that. So I'm using 3.25mm needles for the body and the sleeves, and then going down a needle size or 2 for the ribbing, and that meant that I was getting a tighter gauge than for this one. So I decided to stick with that gauge because I like the fabric that I got, and just figure out which size of the pattern to knit in order to get my size in the finished product. This is something I haven't done before, so I hope it turns out okay. I have heard about people, using a different gauge for patterns before in various podcasts and things like that, and always just I was very confused by it. I didn't really understand what they were talking about. And then I think I was watching an episode of the Grocery Girls podcast, so Tracy and Jodie of the Grocery Girls, and I think they were talking about this, that you can easily knit a pattern to it with a different gauge, different yarn, and it suddenly just clicked. They're very good at explaining things in a very simple way. So the way that I did it was I made my swatch, I measured it for the gauge, And then I worked out how many stitches I would need at that gauge to fit around my bust measurement. And then I just looked on the pattern for the size that had that number of stitches around the body. That happened to be size 6, so it's almost the largest size. And I hope to still have about an inch of positive ease with this one. We will see. Watch this space. I also added a little bit of short row shaping on the back, just to lower the neckline on the front a little bit. And I also wanted this one to be not quite so high up on the neck, so I changed the cast on number. So I worked out basically the raglan increases are an 8 round repeat. So I just did, rather than casting on the number it said, I worked out how many stitches I would have after 8 rounds of the raglan increases and cast on that number instead, and skipped the first 8 rounds of increases. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I'm hoping that it will be sitting a little bit lower down and just be a little bit more open and not quite so warm as this one, so that I have the option between the two depending on what the weather is like. So I think that's all I've got to say about this one. Hopefully that made sense. But I'm really excited to finish this and see how it turns out. I really love the colour of this one as well. I really like how all the pattern details are going to really pop and you'll be able to see them really well. But that also means that I need to take the time to make sure that it is knit well and that there aren't any, really obvious mistakes. One thing that I have to do when I'm knitting ribbing like this is to make sure that my transition between my knit stitches and my purl stitches are tight enough so that all the purl stitches look even. I have found in the past with the way that I knit, so I'm a thrower slash flicker, so I knit English style, and that can mean that when I'm doing ribbing and I'm changing from knit to purl, that first purl stitch can be a little bit looser than the rest of the stitches, and it can be really obvious in the finished fabric. So I just pull that stitch a little bit extra tight to make up for that, and seems to be working so far, so I just have to continue with that. It does mean it takes a little bit longer, and this one is taking me longer because there is a lot more stitches on the needle because of the change in gauge. But I'm hoping that I'll have this finished before the next podcast. The last knitting project that I have to show today is the Hitofude Cardigan by Hiroko Fukatsu, and this is the one that I'm knitting for my mum. So this is the cardigan that I actually knit for myself last year using the Drops Baby Alpaca Silk, which is the same yarn as the top I'm wearing. And when she saw it, she really loved it and asked if I would make her one. So she decided on the colour. I recommended this yarn because I thought it worked really well. It's got good drape to it and it blocked really well with the lace. So last time I showed this, it was a really long flat piece of lace, and now it looks very different. So as you can see, I've got one sleeve here and another sleeve here, and this I've bound off on the top. So this here is the top of the cardigan, and I'm now working on the main body of the cardigan, which is all these stitches down here. And on the back it's got this nice little bit of ribbing kind of indicating the separation between the top and the bottom. It's a really beautiful cardigan, and I'm always surprised with how quickly this actually knits up. It's knit using 3.5mm needles, and I do get gauge with that. And when you first start, you think, oh, surely this is going to take forever. But actually, it's really quick. and I really enjoy knitting on this. It's so relaxing. I think because one, I've knitted before, so I really know what I'm doing, and two, the lace chart is so easy to memorise, so I'm not having to constantly look at the pattern. I can do this lace knitting while watching TV, and I have not done a lot. So I have made a couple of modifications to this, or I plan to make some more, but the main one was that I changed the cast on number, and I followed another person's project page on Ravelry for this design, and she talks about how to change the cast on number depending on what length of sleeves that you want. So I asked my mum what length of sleeve she wanted and then worked out my cast on number from there. I will have her projects page linked below if you're interested, but it was super easy to do. The only thing is that my lace at the back, so let's see, you do all of this lace in a long flat section. You then do some 3 needle bind off on either side to get 2 sleeves, and then you kind of join in the round, and you do some ribbing. And what was I going to say? Yes, so then after the ribbing you just continue with the lace and do some increases. But my lace, because I changed the cast on number, my lace is not lining up with the lace on the top. But that's fine, that doesn't really bother me. I mean, it is kind of lining up, so it's not a huge issue. Like, if you were to look really closely you would notice, but it's not super out of line. Another modification I made is that on the ribbing I decided to do a half twisted rib, kind of inspired by this top that I'm wearing. I really enjoyed how it looked. So it is I think it's a 1x1 rib, but I knit the knit stitches through the back loop, and it just makes it look a little bit cleaner, a little bit neater. And I think I made the ribbing a little bit longer. All the details will be on my projects page. I forget sometimes after I've done it. But yeah, I've kind of been losing a bit of motivation on this one, partly because I don't really know when I'm going to see my mum again. I think once I know for sure that I'm going to see her, I will really knock this one out of the park, because I really want her to have it next time I see her. And I probably won't have it completely finished because I'll want to check the length and things on her, but it should be almost there. We're very similar in terms of the way that clothes fit. We both have relatively short torsos in relation to our height, I think, because it's quite common for us when we buy tops from shops, like ready-made tops. They'll either be too long, or the straps, if they have straps, the straps are always too long, like it never fits properly. We both need like the straps taken up a little bit. So I want this to fit her well. Yeah, I'm really enjoying making this one. I just need to get my skates on a little bit. So that is all of my knitting projects at the moment. I don't have as many on the needles right now as I sometimes do, but that's okay. So it's a lot of kind of bigger, like garment type projects that I'm doing right now, and I do have plans for more. I really want a lot of summery garments, as I've said, so that's going towards my summer vibes knit along. And that leads me into my next segment, which I'm calling Procrasti-knitting. This is all about how I procrastinate when I should be knitting on the projects I already have on the go, and start looking at other projects that I could be doing, new cast-ons, just generally what's going on in the knitting world that distracts me. So let's get on to that. Today's Procrasti-knitting segment is all about some yarn that I found in my stash. I was organising my stash the other day and completely forgotten that I had this yarn. This is Lang Yarn's Kylie, which I have shown before. It is what I believe to be a sport or a DK weight. On Ravelry it says worsted weight. I really don't think this is a worsted weight at all. And it has a really interesting texture. It's kind of like a corrugated or crimped yarn, and it has some kind of tweedy, like a tweedy look to it. This one is a light grey, and it's got some different colours kind of here and there speckled. It's got some blue and a little bit of beige and some white, so it's really interesting. And I have 5 skeins of this, and when I saw this I immediately thought of casting on a cardigan. Something that will still work towards my summer vibes knit along, but something that I can throw on the days that are a little bit cooler, or in the evening if we're sitting outside, something I can throw over my more summery tops. And I thought grey would be a great colour because grey goes with everything. So I was looking on Ravelry, as I do most days, and found some really beautiful patterns. I'm having a really hard time deciding what to make because there's so many things that I love. I did have kind of a general idea in my head of what I wanted. I wanted kind of a very easy to wear cardigan with a little bit of positive ease and some nice texture cabled patterns on it. I just thought that this yarn was a little bit too thin to make something like that, and so I'm planning to pair it with this yarn, which is another sport weight yarn. This is by Hitofude, which is a yarn factory and mill here in Norway, about an hour and a half from where I live. And this is just some leftovers I have in a really nice kind of dark egg blue. So I thought those would pair really well together. So I'm going to talk about the patterns that I'm considering making, and I would love to get your opinion on this. I know I shouldn't be casting on anything else, I have enough to be working on, but I just love dreaming about what I'm going to be making. So the first pattern that I really liked is called Rowe by Michele Wang. And this is a worsted weight pattern, and I've just written some notes here of how they've described their own designs on Ravelry, because I'm really terrible at describing things. So I'll put up some pictures as I'm talking. So she says that the opulent cables take centre stage in this luscious oversized sweater coat. Rowe is worked in pieces and uses cabled panels inspired by Celtic designs. The fronts and back are worked straight to the armholes without shaping, the sleeves are set in, and then the cosy neckband and front ribbing are worked. It's designed for lots of positive ease and will look good with a simple casual outfit to dress it up a bit, or can be used as a jacket in the cooler weather. I really loved the look of this design. It looks really simple and elegant, and has that kind of fit that I was looking for, kind of a relaxed fit with a little bit of positive ease. So that's one of them that I'm considering. The next one is called Gin and Juice, and this is another worsted weight pattern. And this is another one that's all about the cables. And she says that the simple details tie it all together. A bit of texture along the front edges, a faux seam under each arm, and a classic ribbed collar, which can be worn flat or a little bit folded over. When worn flat, it makes the cardigan look a lot more relaxed and kind of floaty, and when you wear it with a little bit of a fold in it, it makes it a little bit more fitted, and yeah, a little bit more kind of dressed up, I guess. Another one that I really love with cables and just that relaxed kind of floaty look with a little bit of positive ease. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to decide between these ones. There's one more. Actually, there was a lot more, but these are the three that I've decided to talk about because I don't have all day. Now, this is the one that I think at the moment I'm leaning towards, but I keep changing my mind, so who knows what I'll actually make. But this is the Oban cardigan by Thea Colman, and it's an Aran weight pattern. And I'll just read a little bit about what she says. So she said this uses her favourite sweater shape, the grandpa cardigan. Worn with a bit of ease, this design has a long slouchy silhouette. Different cables with a reverse stockinette background which makes it easy to modify. It's knit from the bottom up to the armholes, then separated into front and back and knit in 3 pieces to the shoulders. The shoulders are seamed together and stitches are picked up around the armholes and the sleeves are knit in the round. And the cables are both charted and written. This cardigan is almost exactly what I had in my mind when I was thinking about what to make with this yarn. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards this one. I could see myself getting a lot of use out of it. But all of these patterns, I feel a little bit intimidated by them. They all have set-in sleeves. There's a lot of cabling, there's a lot of details going on, and that makes me a little bit nervous. I also know that I won't have enough yarn. I will need to get some more, but I would rather have to get some more and have a garment that I really love at the end and know I'll get a lot of use out of. So that's fine with me. I'll just start it and then get some more a bit later on. But I would love to hear your opinions. Which of the 3 is your favourite? And which one do you think I should make? Give me some help and advice because I really don't know which one to make. So that's it for my procrastinating segment for today. And that brings me to the end of today's podcast. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who enjoys watching my podcast, whether you are a silent viewer, whether you're a subscriber or not. If you like my videos and comment, I really appreciate it. I love being able to get in touch with other knitters, and just this crafting community is such a positive place to be. And yeah, it just makes my day when I see comments from you. So if you want to leave a comment, feel free. If you want to join my ravelry group called the Norwenglish Knitter Podcast, don't forget about my knit along that I'll be running, and I hope to see you next time.